Sometimes it takes a little while for an idea to find its time. Years ago, the techie cool bunch were yelling QR codes from the rooftops. Every forward-thinking brand started incorporating them in some way. But well, they never really caught on, until now. This week we're joining the QR revival. Well, that's if you even remember what they are. Cast your mind back to a time when you had a BlackBerry. Don't cringe, just remember. When you wanted to add a friend to your BlackBerry messaging app, all you had to do is scan this weird-looking square-like barcode with your camera.
Good, thank you.
That was a QR code.
Thank you. Cheers.
Over the past year or so, the technology has been quietly gaining ground, finding its place in the world as a payment gateway. Think about SnapScan, FlickPay, and Zappa. These mobile payment apps make use of the QR code system, and their popularity has helped grow the number of people using QR codes in South Africa to 2.1 million by the end of 2014.
I think the use of QR codes is still growing, and there's still a wider market that needs to use it, certainly in a payment kind of environment, so I think the growth is still strong. Internationally, like the US and the UK, Apple Pay is making its moves, and I do believe they're going to be strong in those markets. I think it's going to be a different story in the South African and African context for now. They don't have that sort of wide users with credit cards, and the technology to roll out, they're using an NFC technology, is more expensive. So I think for now, QR codes is the game in South Africa.
And it's not just in the mobile payment space that QR codes are on the up and up. They're popping up almost everywhere, offering brands a way to provide more information and engage with consumers without the traditional limitations of space and time.
I think South Africans have seen it before in a marketing context. You see a QR code on a poster, to a link to a website or whatever. I don't know if that's really kicked off as much as people envisaged, because a user needs to download an app first and then do the link. So it hasn't flown. I think in our industry, in the payment side, and it's been picked up by all the players in the market, is the use of QR codes. And now I think people are seeing it more, they're far more used to it. And of course, it's a much cheaper route to go rather than putting up equipment at the point of sale or whatever to read on tap and go or some other kind of technology.
Payment isn't the only use for the QR code. In fact, the Independent Institute of Education has become the first in the country to add QR codes to its qualification certificates in order to make it possible to electronically verify that they are legitimate. The idea here is to know the difference between the real certificates and fraudulent ones. Retailers are using QR codes to expand their advertising, and there might even be a time when you see QR codes on tombstones. Just click and learn about the person laid to rest under the stone.
I don't think we've seen a lot of business-to-business applications for QR codes in South Africa. We've sort of got the to-consumer marketing and now in the payment side. And, you know, in terms of manufacture and transferring information, I haven't seen a lot of that.
A worldwide work study suggests QR code adoption is strongly correlated with age. 673,000 of the South African users are between 25 and 34. In contrast, the 15 to 24 segment amounts to only 471,000, while 494,000 are aged from 35 to 44. A similar amount, 425,000, makes up the 45 to 65 age group. There are just 88,000 users over 65.
If I look at our base, I suppose, is a slightly higher LSM. Our typical user is male. There's a male slant, and he's got a smartphone and an iPhone. So that's your sort of typical user. But I do think that the mass adoption of this technology is going to come from your millennials, which is probably one generation down. There was a JWT survey that was done in America and the UK, and the outcome was that millennials are 3 times more likely to use a mobile app to pay, whereas they may be only twice as likely to use tap and go to pay, which is quite interesting. And I think people have seen QR codes before, so they recognize them, they know what they're about. And the experience, the user experience, involves the user a little bit more where QR code is concerned rather than a tap and go. I think that's the people's perception anyway, is tap and go is a little too quick for them, they're not as involved. And I think that's going to develop in time, they're going to start trusting it more, but certainly that's the perception I think that's out there.
The truth is, QR codes have endless potential, and while they've been the ugly stepchild for some time, it seems this is definitely the beginning of something, a quiet rebirth that could be a revolution.